It's time to get your morning started with the news you need to know.
News update.
This is what's trending with DJ and PK. Hashtag NBA.
Paulo veers right. And now he's going to go to work on Strus. He's got Mitchell hanging out behind him. Paulo a long two up and good. Oh, he's in his bag right now. Seattle's finest, shining at his first home playoff game.
Maxey between the legs to the left side of Embiid. Embiid against Hartenstein, rises for another three, and it's good again. He's made back-to-back threes.
Gordon has it between the rings. Throws it off inside the arc over to Nikola Jokic. Hands it off behind him to Jamal Murray. Turns the corner. Alley-oop dunk. Two hands on the lob to AG. Rebound cleared by Porter. Porter shovel pass off on the outlet over to Gordon. No look pass Jokic. Stop. Two hands. Timeout Darvin Ham. Denver's made it a two-possession game.
We have stretches where we just don't know what we're doing on both ends of the floor.
A little late in the year to not know what you're doing on both ends of the floor, PK. But the Lakers getting lost, getting beat in the third quarter and end up losing to the champs. The Denver Nuggets win 112-105. They're up 3-0. They're on their way to another sweep.
Anthony Davis said that after game 2, but I guess you can apply that to game 3. But I don't care about the Lakers. It's about Denver, and it's really fun and amazing to see how these pieces fit together, and you never really know. You know, when they draft Porter and he's got the back injury and he sits out and he comes back, and they take Gordon, who is athletic as can be but wasn't doing a whole lot in terms of helping the Orlando Magic win, and then you stick him into this category here with this team, and he plays this role, and it is truly the best fit possible for each of these individuals. I don't know that they could have had anywhere. You could have taken Aaron Gordon and put him with the 4 other best players in the league, and would he be able to mesh the way he has with this team? That's what's fun about basketball to see, and because you don't really know how it's going to play out, and then you watch it and it unfolds, and it is so beautiful. I don't want to get poetic here, but watching this team play when it matters the most is really something to see and behold.
The number of times that a Denver player beat somebody off the dribble, the help came and stopped him 10 or 15 feet from the hoop, and either threw an alley-oop or a bounce pass or whatever, and found Aaron Gordon on the baseline for a layup or dunk. It was just one layup or one dunk after another. And I guess when you're in Orlando and the team isn't any good and you don't have those guys beating their man around the perimeter, what you can do, be athletic and finish in traffic, you don't really get to show off. But, man, he gets to show it off in Denver, so the piece of the puzzle, as you say, it fits.
Right. He's going to be shirtless in Denver again. and he's going to get his jersey retired. And he was, the 4th pick? He was sort of a bust in Orlando, but now he's going to be remembered and be a legend in Denver 25 years from now.
Toast of the town. 76ers beat the Knicks 125-114. Joel Embiid went for 50 and 21 free throws. He shot more free throws than the whole Knicks team. Nice. That'll win you a game.
Well, yesterday you were saying one leg, so this has to be the greatest
one-leg thing?
No, the greatest performance ever.
21 free throws. You can shoot free throws on one leg.
And back-to-back-to-back threes, which he made.
Yep.
So it isn't about the free throws, because that's just 21 points. He scored 50.
That was 19.
So that would be
31.
Yeah.
Yep. And without those 19 free throws, they probably don't win the game. As they win by 11.
And without the refs, the Knicks didn't win game 2. Your turn.
There is a lot to that right there. I think you just hit the truth. Magic blow out the Cavs 121-83. Cleveland's still up 2-1 in that series. DJ and PK.
Hashtag NFL.
With the first pick in the 2024 NFL Draft, the Chicago Bears select Caleb Williams, quarterback, Southern California.
23 offensive players in the first round. 14 straight offensive players to start the draft. And, man, 6 of the first 12 are quarterbacks. Now, we had this in the draft like 3 years ago, right? Zach Wilson comes out, and there were 5 quarterbacks taken in the first 15 picks in that draft. This is 6 and 12, so it's even a bigger run on quarterbacks. And 1 quarterback in that draft worked out. A lot of teams setting themselves up for frustration. A lot of these guys are going to bust. But as long as your guy works, what do you care as long as all the other quarterbacks bust?
Well, you used past tense, so none of those guys will ever work out.
They won't work out for the teams that draft them. You're right. It could work out in the league somewhere at some point. I mean, Baker Mayfield didn't work out with his second team and 4th team. It finally kicks in.
I don't know if it's going to work out. I don't know if they're going to work out. But this is a position you've got to have. And so, I mean, we can talk about this every year. You want to do it next year? Is it no matter, will be the same thing? It's the same thing all the time. As long as they're available, they have to be available. And they have to be the right draft class to be eligible, I guess is the better word. And if they are, they're going to get drafted, and they're most likely going to be drafted too high. But if you're going to miss on a quarterback, because the reward would be greater if you hit. And the big Penix thing, well, yeah, so they had Kirk Cousins, so now they're getting ripped. I don't know, it seemed to work out for Green Bay a couple of times.
Cousins is signed for 4 years and $180 million. The first 2 years have the guaranteed money in it, but if Penix needs a year or two and Cousins is healthy, they can trade Cousins. There'll be plenty of takers. There's always teams looking for quarterbacks.
Yeah, the Blazers had Jim Paxton, so they didn't need MJ.
Oops.
I'm not saying Penix is going to be a star, although I liked him. I mean, older kid, he'll be 25 during the season, so we'll see how that plays out. You don't know if you knew, but that's what makes the talk show circuit run and the TV shows and all that, especially now when we're doing it 24/7.
If you end up with 2 good quarterbacks, you're not going to have a problem. You're going to trade one for draft picks or players or both. A.J. Brown got a 3-year, $96 million contract extension with the Eagles, so he's signed up through the 2029 season. DJ and PK.
#BYU.
The transfer portal news coming from BYU, where Richie Saunders in basketball decides to stay after going to Kentucky and looking around, maybe saying goodbye. He's back, and McCae Hillstead, who played his high school ball in Utah County, went up to Utah State for a year, played 8 games, started 4 of them. He's transferring to BYU with 3 years of eligibility left. The Cougars getting deep in that quarterback room. Scotty G caught our eye saying McCae Hillstead will be starting by the end of the year, or late in the year.
What position?
Quarterback. He's 5'10". He's not really built for another position.
Right. Britton Covey on line 1. Reno Mahe on line 2. Darryl Sproles on line 3. Stop me, please. I'm on a roll.
He doesn't move like any of those guys. You think he does? You think he's going to move?
Is he just going to stand in the pocket and throw at 5'10"? You better be able to move.
Move to slot receiver and or punt returner. I mean, that's what those guys you just listed do.
You said he doesn't move. You didn't say they didn't.
He doesn't move well enough to be a slot receiver. I would find that surprising.
Okay. All right.
Prepare to be surprised? You think
he's
that's
not
what's
going to be a
happening?
slot receiver, no. But I'm not arguing whether he's going to be a slot receiver. I'm arguing whether he can move. That's the thing. He doesn't move like those guys. You didn't say he didn't move positions like those guys. He doesn't move like those guys. I would argue, sure, he's not as shifty as 2 guys who play in the NFL. But my point being, he can move. I'm not arguing what position he's going to play. He can move, that's for sure. And everybody likes somebody who can move. I mean, it's an asset. It's not anything but an asset. And if he gets in the game and ends up starting, if Scotty is right, and I certainly have no idea if that will come to pass this season, but obviously they went after him. It's one of the reasons is going to be his mobility, and they will use that to their advantage. Absolutely. At 5'10", you're not going to be a pocket passer.
Okay. I thought positions was implied. Yes, he can move around. And I think to Scotty's point, although we'll talk to Scotty at 9:30 and find out, he doesn't have to go there and be the starter. Most of the time, the backup ends up starting games. So if he's going to improve you at the number 2 quarterback spot, then teams are going to take them because most teams are going to play 2 quarterbacks, as our in-state schools all did last year.
Well, yeah.
Did you ever waver on Saunders? Because you thought, I know the day of the press conference when we were walking in, you were in the parking lot going, he wants to stay. But then, he took his time and flew to Kentucky, and I think that started to make people nervous.
Well, if you're going to go in the portal, though, you're just going to sit at home and not answer the phone? What's the point of being in the portal?
Get some trips out of it. Get some frequent flyer miles.
Oh, no. You use it as leverage and get more NIL.
Get more NIL. DJ and PK.
Hashtag Major League Baseball.
Anderson's ready. He fires.
A swing and a drive to deep right. Away back. Gone. Pitch number 10. Deep into the lower deck and right. A grand slam for Jose.
The 2-2 pitch. Swung on, hit in the air. Right field, it's deep. Going back and looking up is Martini, and that is gone. And Bryce Harper in his first game back with a 2-run home run.
0-2 here on Sanchez. And the pitch. High fly ball out to right. Back is Reynolds at the track. Wall gone! El Kraken gives the Brewers the lead in the top of the 8th inning.
Brewers ended up beating the Pirates 7-5. Bryce Harper with the 2-run homer. Phillies win 5-zip. Did you have a chance to watch the afternoon game? I think the Dodgers were on MLB Network. Yamamoto was pitching 6 shutout innings. 6 starts, 3 of them really good, 3 of them not so good. Which way's it going for him? Think he'll end up being all right?
He's a rookie.
Yeah, I know.
I think he needs to learn how to pitch in the big leagues and make adjustments to these hitters whom he's literally never faced. Check back. Yeah, you got to give guys time to adjust and see what they can do. I like his stuff, if that's what you're asking. I've seen him pitch several times now. I saw him pitch the first 2 times in spring training. I'm a geek. And especially a Dodger geek. And I was following it, and when waiting for his turn and found out when both would be. And my wife, the second one, were you going to go to the gym? No, I want to watch him pitch. He's going to pitch 2 or 3 innings, and then I'll go. Relax. And I did. So, he's going to have some rough times, but I see no reason why he doesn't deliver with what they want him to be. Is he an ace? That remains to be seen. I'm not going to go there yet. I don't know that I would slap that label on anybody, particularly with a pitcher with arm issues. Look at Strasburg, right? He threw 140 miles an hour and just tore up the Mountain West and all, and at times he looked great. But he's going to go down as a disappointment because the level of injury. The Dodger pitching coach, Mark Pryor, coming out of USC, was going to be all that. But then he got injured, and it got derailed with pitching, man. It's so sensitive. You just don't know.
Bees lose to the Round Rock Express 1-0. They play again tonight here on the Zone. First pitch at 6. DJ and PK.
Hashtag NHL.
Now a funny bounce out front. A shot, Stephen Lawrence, and he scores! And the Panthers take a 4-2 lead! Stephen Lawrence had the puck come out front, and he wasted no time. He jams it past Vasilevsky, and the Panthers take a 4-2 lead! Braden points at center, dumps it in. Down to our right. Puck handled by Forsling, flipped along near side. Verhaeghe tips it along. Here's Tkachuk toward the open net. Tkachuk near circle, a shot, he scores! Matthew Tkachuk, the empty netter, and the Panthers take a 5-3 lead with 31.5 on the clock.
Now Orlov for Chatfield. His pass right in the middle of the ice for Svechnikov. Quick shot, the score! Sebastian Aho wasting no time, and a wrister puts Carolina back up by 2.
Battle of Florida, the Panthers, 5-3 winners over the Lightning. Florida leads 3-0. They went to the Stanley Cup Finals last year, got beat in the finals. They are pretty close to getting out of the first round this year and knocking out their in-state rivals. And the Hurricanes beat the Islanders 3-2. They're up 3-0 in that series.
I don't think they call them the Canes.
I know, I slipped. Miami. University of Miami. This is Carolina. It's different. You okay mixing and matching nicknames as they pick one here, even if it's belonged to somebody else? Somebody was tweeting at me last night, they ought to be the Raptors. I mean, Toronto's already got that. But
and Ogden.
Yeah, see?
Come on, let's not forget about the Ogden
Why
Raptors.
should they be the Raptors?
He wants them to be like, it's a bird, and it could build off like the mammoth, ancient, and I don't know, he just likes it, I guess. So he's making his pitch.
I have name fatigue at this point.
Yeah, I hear you. Stanley Cup playoffs continue tonight, and the Oilers and Kings, tied at a game apiece, are in L.A. That's a late game, 8:30 on TBS tonight. 4 games spread across the Turner networks. DJ and PK.
Hashtag RSL.
Real Salt Lake back in action on the road again at Philadelphia. You'll hear the game here on the Zone. Ourselves a nice little run of form right here. Back-to-back shutouts, 3 on the year. They've given up the fewest goals in the West, tied for the fewest per game in the league. We'll talk with Pablo at 8:30. Pretty good to be the best defensive team in the league and have Chicho Arango leading the league in goals and tied for the league in assists with Messi.
That's going to get you in first place?
Not yet.
That's not true. They were in first place. That got them first place.
Briefly for an hour or two on Saturday night before Vancouver moved back in front of them.
It got them first place.
It did. We'll talk with Pablo about that coming up. He'll join us at 8:30. Also, the Royals are home this week. The Houston Dash are here, and there's an argument to be made. These are the 2 worst teams in the league. So if you're going to win, getting the Dash at home is a great opportunity. DJ and PK. There you go. That is what is trending. There are your headlines. Coming up next, question of the day. David Locke's here at 8. Pablo at 8:30. Scotty G talking transfer quarterbacks at 9:30. The question of the day is next, right here on The Zone.
You're listening to DJ and PK, presented by Murdoch Chevrolet.
I love it.
Proudly serving Utah since 1926 on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
DJ and PK, it's 97.5 The Zone. It is time for the question of the morning. And as always, it is brought to you by someone I can't remember. Siegfried and Jensen.
Man.
30 years of serving Utah. I know I had one other sponsor in mind, though. I got confused. Sorry, Siegfried and Jensen. Thanks for serving Utah for 30 years. And us for a good chunk of that,
Ned,
too.
the man.
Ned. I haven't seen Ned in a little while.
Call him up. He'll call you right back within seconds if he doesn't answer.
Okay.
And then, PK, how are you?
That is how he answers the phone. Have you ever gotten that at a gas pump?
I don't know.
I pulled in to get gas one day, and I heard that voice, and I looked up. It was Ned on the other side of the pump, hauling away. Yeah. DJ, what are you doing? I'm putting gas in the car. Same thing you're doing, Ned.
For sure. There are offices down there off of I-15, just before you have the 215 connector there. Just a little north of that.
Yep, right around 5,300. All right, DJ and PK, here's the question served up on a platter. McCae Hillstead is transferring from Utah State to BYU. The Aggies play-by-play radio announcer, one Scott Gerard, predicts Hillstead will be BYU starter before the 24 season ends. Is this possible?
Yes, it is.
Yes, 100%. When you phrase it like that, is it probable? And under what circumstances? Is he the starter because he wins the job, he's the best quarterback, and he's leading them to victory? Is he the starter because he's number 3 and the top 2 get hurt? And number 3's got to go?
I can't say what the reason is because what does this mean for the program? That's the bigger issue here. That's probably the better question. Do they want him for the future and he has starting experience and he played for a little bit there and he has a bright future, or they're not happy with the guys that they have and so they've got to go get more? Or do you just keep getting more because you just never know? Who's to say that quarterback X doesn't transfer in the next 2 weeks.
It took a minute, but you got to my answer. I think you keep taking, if they're of a certain standard where you're like, I don't know where A-Rod or Kalani are drawing the line, but let's say they're drawing the line at, is that guy a backup now, or can he be a good backup in a year? If there's a quarterback out there who can be a good backup for your program, whatever level your program is at, from Georgia to, I don't know, New Mexico State or whoever, if you can get a quarterback who can be a good backup for you within 12 months, you better take him, because what you said, the transfer portal is so unpredictable. If you have a guy play really well, someone will come in with more NIL and take him away from you.
Yeah, but I don't know that you're recruiting backups.
That's the minimum level.
You want starters.
You do. So obviously he's good enough to be a starter, you're going to take him. But I think if the quarterback's good enough to be your backup, you better take him.
That you're not going to win games with a whole lot of backups. These guys are charged with winning games. And
but
if
they
you
also
view him as a backup, then that's not good enough.
They also know they have to have 3 quarterbacks, and they're probably going to play 2. So as long as the quarterback coming in can be your man, now I'm really dropping the bar, and that's going to irritate you more. Your third, I get why you would take him. Now, they may see him, like you said, as a starter this year. They may see him as a starter next year because he's got 3 years of eligibility.
I think they bring in someone and the player asks, unless the coaches then are lying to him, he asks and his family asks, do I get to compete for the starting job?
Yes.
They don't, well, then that's not a backup.
Well, it could be, because you could compete and lose the starting job.
Right, but you're not going to go somewhere if they view you as a backup. I disagree with that 100%. You're bringing in people to compete, to start and play, and if they are content with the backup, go someplace else. I don't think you bring in guys to be backups. You're looking for someone to come in and only one guy plays, so by definition, the rest of them will be backups. But in their minds, they are looking to start. So I don't think they're bringing him in with the idea this is a career backup. And in case we need him, boy, you just stand over there for 3 or 4 years, and if we should ever need you be ready to go. I don't see that. I don't see that with him. That he's thinking that he has an opportunity to play. And he's looked at the landscape, and he's made the decision to go ahead and be in the mix, to have this opportunity. If it doesn't come next year, so be it. But you still get the opportunity starting when, summer workouts and all that stuff. But when training camp begins in August, am I going to have a legit opportunity, unless he has some injury or something and that he needs to rehab and so forth, and we'll see you down the line. That remains to be seen, how that shakes out. But I think they're looking at him as you get an opportunity, and then we'll see what you can do. And it's going to be harder because he hasn't been there. The other guys have been there, and we heard that Retzlaff had a little bit of the lead because he had more familiarity with A-Rod's system, and Bohannon had just got there in January, but he was making strides and all. You hear that all the time. So that's the situation there. I mean, I'm surprised that he didn't choose Utah, because on paper it looked like you'd have an opportunity better, but I don't know. Maybe you wouldn't. I mean, who knows? These things are so fluid, and what's available today literally changes next week. We saw that with the Sun Devils, Rashada and all that, and he was battling, and then the next thing you know, he's with Georgia. I'm out of here. And he didn't want the competition, and Georgia gave him more money. Everyone's going to give you more money than what they can give you at Tempe. I mean, they had 2 first-round picks last night in the draft, and neither of them finished their careers with the Sun Devils. One was a Corona del Sol kid, local kid from Tempe, Pearsall, and they all took off, and Herm gutted the program, obviously. Did you know in the Big 12 who's had the most running backs and receivers drafted? Right, of all the teams in the Big 12, it's the Sun Devils. We're down now, but we coming. Yeah, they've always had
stealing Colorado's shtick.
They've always had good running backs and receivers.
I can think of a ton of good receivers there. I'm probably a little slower to think of good running backs.
Yeah. Right now, of all the teams in the Big 12,
all time history of the NFL draft.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. They've always been strong there. No.
I say running back. You say running back at Arizona State, I immediately think of Eno. Love that name. Benjamin.
Well, Rashad White was after him for Tampa Bay. So you need players, and I'm thinking that they think that he thinks he's got a shot. But what does that mean? Does that mean that they're not as happy with the other guys?
I was going to say, does he have a shot because he's going to be really good, or does he have a shot because the other guys are struggling, or he has a shot because he's a quarterback and they're giving everybody a shot, and you're going to play. You expect that you're going to play 2 or 3 quarterbacks in a season. But maybe he's the first one you play. Maybe he can go in. You're right. He's starting further up the track as far as knowing the offense and everything. That seems like a pretty big disadvantage. And Scotty did phrase this, before the season is over.
Oh, yeah.
So he keeps getting better, and somebody else struggles.
He's not going to be the game 1 starting quarterback is what Scotty's saying.
To have the offense down, that would be a pretty big ask.
Whether it's 8, 9, 10 games.
Yeah.
Just basically he's saying give the kid time. All right. He has a redshirt year available if he needs it. So he's got time, right?
He could play the 4 games and still use the redshirt. We've seen that happen.
Yeah. So he's got time. So there's really no big hurry here. But I don't think a kid comes after being in the mix and playing as a freshman is going to go someplace else thinking, well, geez, I mean, if I get the second string, we'll break out the Martinellis here. I don't think that's the mindset whatsoever.
It isn't, but that doesn't mean it isn't the truth also. I mean, the mindset is he's going to be the starter. And it's easy for a coach to say, yeah, I'll give you a chance to start. If you're the best quarterback, I want to win games. We'll definitely start you if you come in.
Well, right, so that would imply that they're lying, though. That they view him as a backup.
You don't have to lie because you pick a truth that's easy to say. I mean, I'm going to give you a chance to compete. If you don't have to say you're going to win the job, you're going to be the starter.
I know, but somehow you thought I was implying the move to receivers when I never discussed any move of a position. So clearly that is implying that, dude, we just view you as depth and you're nothing but an insurance policy, family on 3. That's not what they're thinking. And you can tell how people think of you. They tell you. Because then they're going to have to deal with the parents, and they're going to have to deal with everything else. If they view you as strictly as a backup, they'll tell you that. They're not going to say, sure, yeah, you got the chance. Yeah, everybody gets a chance. There's too much grief involved if you mislead people. That's not the way their recruiting process works. You're going to have to answer for that. No, they're going to look you in the eye and say, yeah, we believe that you have an opportunity to compete. And if you're good enough, you will start. That you know in the way they talk. I don't think they give you snow jobs there that we want some depth and we're just going to string you along. And hopefully, son, we never even have to use you. I just don't think that's the way that they deal with things because that just causes you all sorts of grief. And I know, and I'll leave it at that they have told people, sure, you can be on scholarship, but your chances of playing are pretty slim. And it might be in your best interest to go elsewhere. And if you don't want to, we'll take you. It's like I had a women's softball coach tell me because of Title IX, that they have to have too many freaking scholarships. They have more.
They're recruiting pinch runners at that point.
And they look you in the face and say, this is what your role will be. Now, don't give us any crap and don't be a locker room problem because you'll be a scholarship person, but you're nothing but a courtesy runner and a pinch runner because they courtesy run for the catcher and all that stuff. And if you're happy with that, let's go. That doesn't mean they can do more. They can't do more. Harpering told me, Kremens told him that. He was catching grief because Harpering was a local kid from Atlanta and he hadn't offered him a scholarship. And then way later in the recruiting process, during baseball season, Harpering was dragged out of practice to go downtown and Kremens told him that and said, don't give me any crap. That doesn't mean you can't be better than that, but that if you are not, I don't want to hear it from you. And Harpering said, okay, and then he ends up starting. He started the whole time. He started right from the first game.
Right.
Yeah.
He went from getting the don't give me any crap to starting lineup his first year there.
Right.
So that brings up the question. I don't think there's a 0% chance of Hillstead starting. I don't think there's a 100% chance of Hillstead starting. And I would be surprised, although I don't have any idea, so maybe I shouldn't say it, but I'd be surprised if the Cougar coaches had him at 0 or 100. But is there, when you tell someone they have a chance to compete, is there a 20% chance they're going to win the job? Is there an 80% chance? How good is he?
Well, when? This year? Next year?
Yeah, when. So as an old person, I think we think at any point while you're at BYU by your senior year, that would be good enough. But I think the way kids think now, it's either this year or next year. I don't think most quarterbacks, and I don't know because I haven't talked to McCae, maybe he thinks differently. But if I just hear a generic conversation about this, are you going to be a starter? It's this year or next year.
Throw out injury.
Manning at Texas is being very patient. He's on the super patient end of the scale.
Yeah, one season.
Right. But watch quarterbacks transfer and tell me he's not on the patient end of the scale. Anyway, go ahead. Throw out injury.
Yeah.
Is he literally better than these guys?
Right, because you can't predict that. Because the kid himself can be injured. He can suffer a season-ending injury, knock on wood against it, in training camp. If he ends up starting, just go talent-wise, right?
Okay.
My thought, and this is just me speaking, no fact behind it, just me speaking.
Right.
If he ends up starting, it will be earlier rather than later.
What do you mean by earlier? Because you just throw out the multiple year. You mean it'll be this year as opposed to later?
Yeah, I'm talking about this season. This season. Yeah. Oh, next year and subsequent years, it ought to be on.
With the way the portal works, who knows?
Well, okay. The reason why I'm saying this is this team went 5-7 last year, right?
Mm-hmm.
And not good. Not good enough.
Not good enough. Agreed.
And
everyone would agree.
And I don't know how long the coaching staff is going to have. They already made 2 changes after the first 5-7, and the last time they had a losing record, they wiped out everybody. And Bronco did the same thing. I don't remember if it was losing records,
but I think
it was like
works.
7-6 or something along those lines. One year he moved the offensive guys and then moving the defensive guys, right?
It's how college football works,
right.
Yes.
And then he left.
Regardless of how much time they have, they're going to operate in a world assuming they don't have a lot of time. That's how they're going to operate. Whether they do or they don't, that's what they're going to think.
And if he ends up, I don't think he'll be the starter from day one. If he ends up being the starter, that would, assuming we throw out injury for the sake of argument here, that they would be ineffective, the other guys.
Right.
And so you can't let an ineffective player play 3, 4, 5 games. If he's ineffective, you got to go. And they got to go. They don't have what am I looking for? They don't have any leeway to pussyfoot around here. They got to go.
They can't slow play this.
So if he's going to end up being the starter, when we're excluding because of injury, I think he ends up starting 5, 6 games.
The September schedule, I see what you're talking about.
Because they don't have time. Unless he totally sucks in August.
How quickly will he assimilate the offense?
Which I don't think he'll totally suck in August. He looked okay when he got out there. I saw him play.
But they're looking for somebody who isn't okay. They want somebody who's good.
But yeah, but he's going to make progress as a player no matter where he goes.
You would think, right?
Yeah.
Now, changing programs might slow that progress down, but as a true freshman and not the biggest guy, he made plays.
Right.
But he made plays both negative and positive. There were too many picks.
Because he's a freshman.
Right.
Steve Young threw 42 interceptions against Georgia.
42. There were a lot of possessions in that game.
Right. And he was a junior. But wasn't that his first game or second game or something?
First-year starter, right.
I mean, all these legend stories, I had no idea till I got here.
Right.
And then,
but he was in the cycle where you redshirt for 1 year.
The 14th backup long snapper or something.
7th-string quarterback, and they told him to move to safety.
And his father said, you ain't coming home, son, or something. I mean, it's a legend. It's grown. In fact, his grandfather, I think his grandfather's father said it. Brigham might have said it for all we know. Keep going back. Stay there, son. And so, yeah, you're going to have to overcome it. It's not going to just roll out there and be freaking Ty Detmer as a junior. It's going to take, give the kid to develop. I don't know if that's going to happen, though. I'm just saying, I'm painting a scenario if it happens.
Well, they've got a game in August and 4 in September. So to your point about 5 or 6 games, whoever wins the starting job has got to produce 3 or 4 wins in those first 5 games. They got to hit the ground running here. So if somebody isn't doing that, your assumption that they will move on to the next quarterback, that's not a reach. You're not very far out on the limb there.
But then it would do twice. I know when I'm bold, you like to say, that's obvious. I get how you work.
No, it's not obvious.
Sure.
It's logical. I hadn't even thought about it, so it's not.
It would be 2. Because at best, on day 1, he's going to be third team, at best.
The other guys have been in the program.
Day 1.
Yeah. The other guys
not day 15, not day 30.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
But the other guys have been in the program, and they've earned their spots.
Bourget came over.
You've got to come in and take those spots.
He was there in training spring ball, right? Yeah, so he transferred in, and so he's been in the program. So I would think that you're not going to move somebody up based on summer workouts. That's nice and all, but it's not real football. You can get down game plans. You can develop connections with the receivers, yada, yada, all that stuff. I'm not discounting the importance of summer workouts. I mean, that's what Dan Hawkins was screaming about all those years ago. And so they are important, but I don't think you're going to adjust depth charts based on what happens in June and July.
Coaches don't like to do that. Yeah. You're going to be a tough guy, make you earn it, all that stuff.
Yeah, and you're not even supposed to be out there. So he'll have that opportunity. It's limited. There's not enough time, and I wonder. And I don't even from the negative, I don't know if there's enough time for those other guys to suck that bad. Rather than there's not necessarily enough time for him to wow everybody. I don't know that there's enough time for these other guys to stink that bad. It seems like it's a small window to where they would say, man, these guys, we really missed the boat on them. I don't think so. And my guess is it doesn't happen. That this year is a developmental year.
For the kid. For Hillstead.
And I hope for BYU's sake it is.
Well, you'd like to think they hadn't missed on the other 2 quarterbacks.
Yeah.
One of them is good enough.
Right. To get them 6 wins.
They had the developmental year for Retzlaff, and he had the mix of play the 4 games but still use the red shirt.
Yeah. Right. That's ideal scenario is this kid doesn't touch the field.
Bohannon hasn't played recently because he's been hurt, but over the course of his career, he's got a couple years worth of action in.
For sure.
So he ought to be more up to speed and ready to go.
Exactly.
And he had spring football and McCae didn't. So McCae starts at number 3, but if somebody else starts throwing picks and McCae's in whatever limited reps they give him, because they don't like to give the third quarterback a lot of reps, but they'll do it early in the summer. And that's where he's got to show he can at least beat out one of these guys and get to number 2 and keep getting reps.
I think the point being is that they'll have a short leash. They cannot afford another losing season. It amazes me that Chris Hill stuck with Kyle for 2 losing seasons, and it was absolutely, obviously, overwhelmingly the right decision, without question. My gosh, makes you think if Chris would have had a trigger figure then, that would have been so bad. But I don't know that you can do it now in the world in which we live in.
Well, to your point, I don't know, did you already look at the schedule and already know this? They've got 5 games, and there's some good tests in there. I mean, they're going to SMU and Baylor. They're hosting Kansas State, so you got a couple of conference games. They also have Southern Illinois and Wyoming. And so if they're not 3-2 or 4-1 and the quarterback isn't looking good, they've got a bye week. They're playing Arizona and Oklahoma State, and it is on.
It's on, yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So they've got to be in a good spot.
Agreed 100%.
They got to get off to a good start. They've got a bye week if they want to make a change. So when Scotty says, not right away, but later in the year, you always look at bye weeks as a chance if they're going to change quarterbacks. It's a good time to do it. Coaches have talked about that
Scotty's
forever.
coming up in an hour and a half or so. I am going to light him up. How dare he?
How dare you?
How dare he?
It's supposed to be outraged. Instead, I'm entertained. How dare he?
Yes.
All right, DJ and PK, it's 97.5, The Zone. If you're just joining us, David Locke is here talking NBA playoffs and Jazz in the offseason at 8. Pablo Mastroni, can RSL keep it rolling? He's here at 8:30. Scotty G talking transfer and quarterbacks at 9:30. DJ and PK, it's 97.5, The Zone.
When it comes to the biggest moments in Utah sports history, these guys have seen it all. This is DJ and PK. DJ and PK on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
I've gotta take a little time.
The band of the day is Foreigner. House Band of the Day brought to you by Live Nation. For all the live concert and events in 2024, check out livenation.com.
They's going into the Hall.
The Hall of Fame.
Saw him a long time ago. Many, many moons ago. When they were first starting. Saw him at the Las Vegas Convention Center. They're coming here, I think. This summer? Maybe not. But they're in, I know they got elected. It's like, wow, man, they got elected to the Hall of Fame. And it took this long? Is this the most prestigious Hall of Fame ever to get elected to?
The most prestigious, it takes that long? Or there's just so much competition across the industry?
Well, just like a couple years ago, Tina Turner got in.
You would have thought Tina Turner was already in.
Decades ago.
Tina Turner didn't have much to prove at that point. You're accomplished.
And Carole King. These people that were dominant in the 60s.
Yeah, you're dominant in the 60s or 70s. Why are you waiting for the 2010s or the 2020s?
Yeah, and I guess you got to be 25 years after you first come out.
Okay.
I get that.
And that's fine.
Yeah.
But still.
That should only put you about 50 probably.
Somebody who's crushing it in 1970 ought to be in 2000, not in 2015 or 2024 or whatever.
I would have thought in their genre as a rock band.
For people of a
little earlier.
For people of a certain age, Foreigner was a band that was on the radio all the time, driving around town. I mean, they had tons of hits.
Yeah.
Then they kind of went away. But they're certainly of the caliber that you just think, well, they can tour as much as they want. How much do they want to tour? And it sounds like they don't want to tour, so they just go to Vegas and put on shows. They don't want to deal with the travel. We'll be semi-regulars. It's not, I don't think they really go and do the full
I don't know what they do.
Residency, but they're there.
Yeah, I don't know. But I think it must be tough to get into that. I don't know how you get in, but when you finally get in, maybe it's even sweeter. You got to wait that long. But good for them, and way to go. Hall of Fame, the pinnacle. I wouldn't mind getting in the Hall of Fame myself, but I have no Hall of Fame to get into. The Blowhard Hall of Fame.
The Walter Cronkite School of Journalism Hall of Fame.
No. And you know what? Which is interesting about that?
What?
The guy who got Walter Cronkite
to put his name on the school at ASU?
I believe I did the math on this.
Mm-hmm.
There's a guy named L. Dean Bennett. And he was always confusing because he was the dean of the journalism school. Well, am I calling him Dean?
Dean Bennett?
Yeah.
That's a little redundant. Dean L. Dean Bennett. Yeah.
Well, he...
Double D.
Yeah, he, I believe, was the predecessor to Paul James as the BYU announcer in football and basketball.
Back in the
That'll
day.
give you something to look up. I know he was a BYU guy, and he was LDS. I knew it at the time. There he goes.
Yeah, I'll look it up.
He's addicted to looking up stuff. I love to just send him on these goose chases.
Yeah. Misspelled it. Hold on. Get the answer here.
His name is capital E, capital L, capital, I think, D. Maybe the D's lower. But Bennett, common spelling there. But I read a bio on him because something came. I get the ASU stuff. And it was listed in his bio. He's deceased now. And it said in 1965 he went to do something else. And that's when Paul James took over.
Paul James had been at Utah for like 3 years doing that and then jumped to BYU. Eldine was born in Provo, Utah. This is from his obituary. After completing a degree at Brigham Young University, he worked at KSL Radio in Salt Lake City, broadcasting football and basketball games as the voice of the Cougars of BYU for 14 years.
But I knew that.
Wow.
But what I'm saying is...
Right before that they were...
Yeah. Was he the... What did it go? Eldine Bennett. It doesn't say.
Nah,
I already looked that up.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So I'm not the only one looking stuff up.
Well, it came. It came in the thing, so it was there for me to look at.
Okay.
Yeah, and so I believe if you do the timing, I think that's when
one right to
Paul
another
took over.
Oh, okay.
So I think it went.
Next time we have Greg Wrubell on, let's ask him because I'll bet
Eldine Bennett to Paul James to Greg Wrubell.
Yeah, I bet Greg knows the history of it.
Yeah, and then he went down at some point. Went down to Tempe, and was a professor, and I had him in school. As one of the...
So he's a professor there, then he becomes the dean, and then he somehow has some connection to Walter Cronkite and
so
pitches him
yes.
and recruits Walter, and Walter does it.
1985, or I don't remember, 84, whatever it might be. Yeah, he knows him, gets Walter Cronkite to attach his name to the journalism, telecommunications, broadcasting, blah, blah, blah. And I think it was this man who was actually a BYU guy. And a Provo native here.
Yeah. There you go.
Yeah.
Backstory.
Yeah.
All right. Well, next time we have Greg on, we'll ask him. Because I'm sure he knows the history of the BYU broadcasters there. All right, DJ and PK, when we come back, David Locke on the NBA playoffs and the Jazz offseason. He joins us next. Pablo at 8:30. Scotty G on transferring quarterbacks and where McCae Hillstead fits in at BYU. That's at 9:30. DJ and PK, it's 97.5 The Zone.